Today, whales have a special place in our cultures. We document every encounter. We don't understand the people that eat them. But for most of history, the relationship between humans and whales was defined by violence. For ages, brave men risked their lives in tiny boats to hunt these mammals. Their oil lit the biggest cities in the world. In less than a century, humanity killed 3 million whales. This was the biggest hunt in history, driving them to the brink of extinction. And then it stopped. This is a story of how capitalism changed whaling, from a holy ritual to an impersonal killing spree. A war between profit-seeking sailors and the biggest mammals on the planet. How a song changed our perspective, saving these animals from extinction. From us seeing whales as gods and monsters, to intelligent mammals that deserve to be saved. As long as mankind have existed, they've had a special relationship with water. Rivers and seas provide opportunities for transport, trade, and animal protein. But leaving land was never without risk. Storms could destroy your ship. And who knows what lurked in the depths of the ocean. Sailors told stories of encountering terrifying sea creatures, beasts with huge blowholes and sharp teeth. In the Bible, it is a sea monster, Leviathan, that eats the damned. Jonah is swallowed by a whale for 3 days and nights. And the Japanese god Ebisu has links to the sea mammal. But for most of human history, whales were prey. This topic has fascinated me for 10 years. I want to show you something. This is the Scheepvaart Museum. I actually used to work here as a guide about 10 years ago. This video is not sponsored by them, but they have a really nice exhibition about the whale that I want to show you. But first, what is a whale? There are around 90 different species of whale, or cetaceans. Like us, they are mammals. And like us, it's a family defined by extremes. It includes the dolphin, that is so smart it can recognize itself in a mirror. The sperm whale, that is the loudest animal alive. And the blue whale, the biggest creature in the entire history of the planet. Whales use their fats, called blubber, as a way to store energy and as insulation against the cold. They come in different sizes and shapes, but there's one big difference between them. You have toothed whales, like the sperm whale, and then you have baleen whales, like the big blue whale. Baleens are these long strips in the mouth of these whales. They're made of the same material as your fingernails or your hair. And they use these to take big gulps of water and trap small organisms in these baleens. It is the slower baleen whales that were the first targets for humans.
The harpoon hits the whale in the flank. Scared, it tries to swim away. For the sailors, this is a dangerous moment. If the whale dives or swims under an ice flue, the boat can capsize, dropping the men into the freezing waters of the Arctic.
Long before Europeans sailed to the North Pole to hunt, Inuit people ate stranded whales and hunted on open waters. In these cultures, a stranded whale was a gift from God. The whale literally sacrificed itself to help the Inuit survive. The skin provided the much-needed vitamin C, the blubber was food, and the bones were used to build sleds and homes. And this hunting was very ritualistic. Hunters needed to be pure, so they couldn't sleep with their wives before the hunt. And they also believed that the soul of the whale would return to the sea, and so they mourned the killing of each whale. Some think this ritualistic whaling culture might have expanded all the way from Japan to Greenland. But another culture came around that did things much differently. Whaling from the shore was also established in some places, but there was one people that really changed the game. This is believed to be the first print of whaling in Europe. Here the hunters strike these classical poses as they throw their harpoons. The helpless whales look like big fish. On the shore, the hunters cut up the whale and the valuable blubber is rolled away. The men on this image are believed to be Basque sailors, a small community in northern Spain. The Basques gave us the word for harpoon, coming from arpoi, to take quickly.
You shuddered as you gazed, and wondered what monstrous cannibal and savage could ever have gone a death harvesting with such a hacking, horrifying implement.
The Basques did not hunt whale to survive on the meat. They did not mourn the whales they killed. They hunted for profit. And, very important, when their home whales were depleted, they established new whaling grounds all over the Atlantic. The Basque Way would become the blueprint for a whaling industry that almost got rid of all the whales. An industry with a lot of competition, always a need to innovate, and when resources in one location are depleted, you just move on to the next one. A classic story of capitalism. Other nations saw how good the Basques were at killing whales, so the English and the Dutch start hiring them as whaling consultants. And then in the 1600s, the Dutch become the biggest whalers of them all. The Dutch set up shop here in the north at a place called Spitsbergen. It's Dutch for pointy mountains. But they also had to expand their hunting grounds further and further because they just hunt too much of them. This is the kind of whales they were hunting at the start. This is called a Greenland right whale, and it was a right whale because of two things. It was very slow, and when it was dead, it would float. So then it's easy to tow it along. And you can actually you can go inside. Big boy. To get an idea of the size, this is the heart of a Greenland right whale. Holy shit.
Today is not the day of the whale. As it tires, the boat comes closer. The sailor in front aims a lance at its heart. This will mean death.
But if they hunt for profit, what do they sell? The answer is the blubber. This fat of the whales is boiled to become oil, and people can burn this oil for illumination. This is a huge deal before we have electricity. There were some alternatives, but they were all more expensive than the whale oil. Another reason they are hunting these animals is they can use the baleines, and you can basically use it as plastic before we had plastic.
Die werden vroeger onder andere verwerkt in corsetten en paraplu's, maar men maakte er ook tal van gebruiksvoorwerpen van, zoals meetlinten, dirigeerstokken, bestek en brillenkokers en monturen.
For the Europeans, these whales fixed a lot of their problems. With all this whaling, people get a better idea of what they were. They get interested in the anatomy of the whales. You can see it in this image of a stranded whale. It attracts huge crowds. People that are interested to see what kind of insides the whale has. It can give you the oil they need. The people coming here to look and finding out that whales, dead whales, are actually quite stinky. With this lady covering her mouth, they're measuring how big the whale is. They're measuring how big the tail is. They're measuring... In images, they changed from these fish-like monsters with huge blowholes and scary teeth to something more recognizable. Yet, if you look at this print, the supernatural is still connected to these beings. Here, a stranding of a whale is seen as a bad omen. Death is striking the city of Amsterdam. It is in the next phase of whaling that this will change. From a mysterious monster, the whale will transform into nothing more than a product. As the mystery of the whale died out, the mystery of what to do with your life burned stronger than ever. Before pursuing YouTube, I had a different career. For 40 hours a week I went to an office, commuting 2 hours every day. After some time I noticed that often my biggest daily achievement was to have replied to all my incoming emails. shortly after that, I saw a terrifying statistic about how much life is spent working. I decided to make a change. I now devote my time to making jokes about whale penises. Since doing that, I've had a lot of friends and people come up to me to congratulate me on this brave choice. They tell me they appreciate it, I found something I really want to pursue. This string of text is for them. 80,000 Hours is a non-profit that can help you find a job that you feel happy about and does good in the world. They have a well-researched career guide to give you a direction, a job board with listings for a high-impact career path, and a podcast to listen to. This is all free of charge, so be sure to check out how 80,000 Hours can change your career and your life.
This oil gives the cleanest and most beautiful flame of any substance known to nature.
The Dutch got outcompeted by the English and then the Americans. The center of whaling moved to the United States, and I have to show you a map. This is a historical atlas of the United States. It shows how America is definitely different from other imperial powers in the past. But we're not interested in that right now, because this map also shows a different thing. There is one word that is repeated everywhere on this map. This map tells you that in the 1800s, whales were not safe anywhere. The Americans would go global. From the Arctic to Antarctica, from Madagascar to New Zealand, ships, crews and gear got bigger. Sailors were away for years on end. Take this obituary of a sailor from that time.
He had been in exile from home for nearly 35 years, having spent about 5 years of his time with his family.
And they were also hunting a new prey that was faster, had sharp teeth, was more dangerous.
I found one tooth had entered my head, breaking in my skull. My jaw and 5 teeth were broken, tongue cut through. My left hand was pierced with a tooth. 'Twas favorable. I retained my senses.
Sperm whales are toothed whales. They hunt giant squid with it, as the scars of many of these mature whales will tell you. That means they don't have the valuable balleens that the right whales do have. But they did have more clean and stable burning oil. And they have a liquid wax in their head that made the best candles money can buy. And this wax smelled like, well, semen. And in the early 1800s, the world desperately needs oil. People are moving from the countryside to the cities. Whale oil lights the house they live in, the streets they walk on, and the factories they work in. Whale oil lubricates the machines that are transforming the whole world. Whale oil literally fueled the Industrial Revolution. So when the British blocked the import of American whale oil, founding father John Adams, he's surprised.
That you prefer darkness and consequent robberies, burglaries and murders in your streets to the receiving of our spermaceti oil.
And it is, of course, a sperm whale that is the obsession of one Captain Ahab in the book Moby Dick. It's an icon of American literature that honestly for me has a special place as the most boring book I ever tried to read. Sorry. At the height of American whaling, they were killing over 10,000 whales all over the globe. Progress often comes at a price, I guess. This whaling was not sustainable. Smaller catches, the competition of other oils to light homes, and competition from Norwegians killed the US whaling industry. At this point, it could still be a somewhat happy end to a gruesome story. Tens of thousands of whales had been caught. The right whales were gone from many places. But even with all this killing, there are still a lot of other whales in the ocean, with the biggest whale of all practically untouched. Could be a happy end, because the hunt had just started.
One modern factory ship can take more whales in one season than the entire American whaling fleet of 1846, which numbered over 700 vessels.
In the 1800s, whales had become just another product. Whale oil was everywhere. Women were wearing corsets from baleen. But whaling was still a dangerous adventure. Men were going out in small boats hunting this fierce opponent. It is one man that completely changed that. Sven Foyn invents a new murder machine, the harpoon grenade. This is a harpoon fired by a gun that lodges itself in the whale and explodes.
The whaler's fish captain gets ready his harpoon gun, the Sven Foyn gun, invented by a Scandinavian of that name.
As unsubtle as effective, it forever changed the hunt for whales. Together with innovations like steam-powered saws, pumping dead whales full of air so they don't sink, catching a whale becomes cheaper and cheaper. In 1850, it took 26 hours to process an adult sperm whale. In the 1920s, it could be done in less than one. And so from wooden ships and small sloops, they evolve into these huge industrial factory ships. They can get a whale in the back here, and then on this deck they can completely take it apart, get everything they need from the whale, and you don't even need a base on land anymore. And now they're able to set their sights on the biggest whales of all, the blue whale, and the numbers are just staggering. This is a chart that shows whaling in the last century. The line just goes up and up and up. The only good time for whales is when humans are bankrupt or too busy killing each other. All the killing does make some men uncomfortable.
We never wanted to know too much about them. It was too much like murder as it was. There are times when too much knowledge can stand in a man's way.
But for the rest of the people with the killing far from home, a whale has already long turned into just a product. Whale margarine now makes it to the shops. Whale meat is used as animal food. And the whale in Disney's Pinocchio is still a monster. But already after the First World War, some nations are thinking, maybe this whaling is going too far. They sort of try to regulate themselves, but that doesn't work. And when then, after the Second World War, the International Whaling Committee is set up, nothing much changes. All nations need food and animal fat, so whaling only goes up. In the IWC, they spend their time disagreeing over how much whaling is enough. They take 20 years to put a ban on hunting the blue whale, and by that time, there are almost none left.
Case for the whalers was put by the Norwegian chairman of the International Whaling Commission when I asked him if it was true that the whale is in danger of extinction.
The number of whales of certain species are far above what actually could still be exploited.
But society is changing. New documentaries about the sea make the marine world interesting to a wider audience.
The ocean floor is a dream world, silent, vast, mystic, unreal, lonely beyond words, beauty that haunts one, majesty all its own.
You get films like Flipper that show dolphins in a good light, and whales are suddenly seen as playful, as smart, as closer to humans than they had thought before. And it is one man that has an outsized impact on how we see these sea mammals.
Off Bermuda, a herd of the once numerous humpback whales appears each spring. An acoustical biologist from Rockefeller University, Roger Payne, meets them there each year and lowers special underwater microphones to record their songs.
I had noticed that no one ever seems to be interested in saving a species unless they fall in love with it first. Because whale songs are so alluring, I had hoped that if enough people heard them, they might rise in anger and force whaling to stop.
The record that he releases with the whale sounds sells 100,000 copies. The impact of this can't be overstated. Whales suddenly have culture. They are seen as close to humans. This album is an inspiration for the founding of organizations like Greenpeace. They started a Save the Whale campaign. When Voyager 1 is launched, it carries the song of the humpback whales into space. Under public and American pressure, the IWC finally cracks, and in 1986, international whaling grinds to a halt. In under a century, the world had killed almost 3 million whales. In terms of biomass, this is the biggest hunt in the history of mankind, and it now has been stopped. To see how this was possible, take this account of sperm whales. In 200 years, humans had killed about 300,000 sperm whales. Then with industrial whaling, they killed the same number in the first 60 years of the 20th century. And then again, 300,000 in just 10 years. Whaling hasn't actually stopped. In 2024, 3 industrial nations are still doing it. It says a lot about our changing perspectives that is now widely condemned. And contrary to what you think, it is not just Japan doing it. At the same time, we can ask ourselves if the whale is not still a product. Now it's just more profitable to us alive than dead.
They're hunting whales off the California coast. No harpoons, the most deadly weapon is the camera, as boatloads of the adventurous head out to sea for a close look at the gray whale migration.
Even with all that, whales have made a journey, from mythical monsters to a product to an animal that symbolizes our treatment of the planet. It shows how our cultures can change. We are now disgusted by the whales that get killed for food. It's almost as bad as those people that eat cats and dogs. And yet, this is an amount of empathy that not all animals receive. This is the amount of cows that we eat. This, the number of pigs. And this is the number of chicken that get killed. This is not per year, this is per day. A few years ago I decided to try and stop eating meat. For the animals and for the planet. Nowadays more than 99% of my meals are vegetarian. But I sometimes can't resist the temptation of a juicy hamburger after a night out. I know how easy it is to eat meat without thinking about it. I did it almost my whole life. I love meat. And it's such a big part of our cultures. It's hard to get away from. I'm not saying you should also change your diet. But over the last years, cutting out meat for me has become easier. Replacements like the Beyond Burger are almost as juicy as the real thing. I still dream about bacon sometimes, but whenever I eat meat now, it's okay. It's just never as amazing as I'd imagined. Still, I am looking forward to a future where it is possible to have cultured meat, to eat real meat without hurting animals. And who knows, this might someday help to extend the feelings we have for whales to other beings with a beating heart.